Oh, from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental Studio. That's why I write it down. I get lost. Seriously, that's why I write it down.
Oh, man, there's our 30.
Oh, from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental from the AT&T MLS studios in Midtown Manhattan. I am Andrew Wiebe with my single, solitary, lone partner in soccer, Matt Doyle. It is MLS Cup week. We haven't ever defined that, but
yeah, it should be a week.
It should be a week.
I actually do like having about 10 days between the conference finals and MLS Cup, but the event should be called MLS Cup Week, and this should be MLS Cup 24.
And that would make us the left behinds. We're the only ones here. We're the only ones, I guess Kalen Carr will be back, that are not going to MLS Cup. And I don't know. He's off. It's not even movement related this time. I always thought that you would be the left behind because you always wanted to be the left behind, but I never thought that I would be the left behind, and yet here I am, back in New York City, when on Sunday, the Sounders and Toronto FC will play for the Philip F. Anschutz Trophy, 3 p.m. Eastern, ABC, of course, the big channel, straight over the airwaves, into your antenna, the one with, like the aluminum foil on top, if you still do that, or...
I'm not going to bail you out of this.
However you pull in that signal, you can get it on ABC at 3 p.m. In Spanish, TUDN, Univision, and then in Canada, TVA and TSN. We've got a big list of guests to help guide you through this. We've talked about it so much, it just felt right to bring in a laundry list of people, and we will start with ESPN's Taylor Twellman. We also have Matt Pentz from The Athletic, Danny Dichio, a Toronto FC legend, to tell us about Michael Bradley's place in that club, ARON PAPERNIck of Canada FC, and Jeremiah Oshan of Sounders at Heart will give us their predictions from both sides of the aisle, and we will give ours. Anything left to say that you haven't said, Doyle, in these many, many months of coverage and these weeks of Audi 2019 playoff coverage and, I don't know, the hours upon hours we spend at this table talking into microphones over the course of a year?
It's less about the cup, and it's more about the opening. You never thought that you would be among the left behinds, but we all saw it coming. The rest of us knew that this moment would come for Andrew Wiebe.
What were the telltale signs? Can you tell me?
Let's just get to the interviews.
Okay, Taylor Twellman is here. You can hear his voice at 3 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Taylor, what's up, man?
What's going on, boys? That's a great introduction to someone who usually speaks something to the death, which is kind of what I do.
Just in honor of your appearance here on the show. How do you feel about the matchup? 3 times in 4 years. Some people, my gut when this happened was meh. But now I'm coming around, so give us the big sell.
Well, I think we're underselling Toronto, Seattle. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's also we're naive to say that the neutral fan didn't want to see LAFC versus Atlanta. So I think anyone that takes offense to, Weebies of the world and us saying, it's a little, that's just being honest and being transparent. Now, when you dig into it and you really look after Seattle, Toronto, the third matchup, I love it, guys. Now, part of me, obviously, I can't stand the same teams matching up because that's my personal history, and I've gone through this, and it makes you kind of have the hot spits, and around Saturday night I'm going to start to throw up. But the truth of the matter is, it's in Seattle, so you get a different look. I think Seattle's better than they were in 16 and 17 going into this game. I think in large part because Rui Diaz is up front. Now, I think all of us wish Jozy Altidore was at full strength so you could see what Toronto would really bring. But these guys played once in 2019. It was a 3-2 game with everyone healthy. I think we may get the same kind of game.
So I like what you said there. And when we talk about Seattle, I just can only think about Brian Schmetzer right now and sort of his moment in the sun and how, certainly maybe we have underestimated him because we sat at this table a lot in these playoffs, and just about every time there was a question about whether they would be up for it in that way. Who is the real Brian Schmetzer, and have we missed him all along?
No, I think this is the Brian Schmetzer. But, yes, to your question, I do think some of us, majority of us, have missed him. Now, part of that is he's understated, and he's been here for his entire life and his entire career, and he's done it in that manner. But I think now, you think about it, guys, what is it, third MLS Cup in 4 years? I just think he's maybe opened up a little bit and said, wait a minute, I deserve some of this recognition. I deserve to be in the conversation with the Bob Bradleys in Major League Soccer, Tata Martinos. Now, aesthetically, it hasn't been the same as the LAFCs and Atlantas of the world, but results-wise, guys, he's been extremely on point. I'd argue with anyone, and I just landed here in Seattle, that game against LAFC on the road was their best performance in MLS franchise history. And I don't care what game you want to come up with, but the way they went after a game plan but then executed the game plan, you have to tip your cap to Brian Schmetzer. He's got a chip on his shoulder. I think he's had that chip on his shoulder his entire career, whether it's through the NASL, the A-League, being an assistant coach with Ziggy Schmidt, and now the head coach here, the way he's built his staff, with Preki, Pineda, and Traore. I just think there's a chip on the shoulder to prove something. But I also think they've got some pressure on them because the first 2 MLS Cups, you may have won it in 2016. It wasn't pretty, and Stephen Fry had to stand on his head. I think there's some pressure on Schmetzer and the Sounders to deliver on this one.
Do you think that'll change the way he coaches? Because what they did against LAFC, it was wonderful, it was ruthless, it was well executed. Toronto FC is not going to let them do that. Toronto FC is not going to be naive in those spots on the field. They haven't been even all year, and they're better now than they were at the start of the season. So is Brian Schmetzer, and I'm going to ask this of literally everybody I talk to about this MLS Cup, is Brian Schmetzer going to take the reins off and say, okay, boys, get out there. Brad Smith, you overlap. Jordan and Nico, create those overloads on the left-hand side. Christian, sneak forward if you can. Is that the Seattle we're going to have to see in this game?
Doyle, it's a great question. And even for you, Wiebe, as well, when was the last time you did an MLS Cup when the home teams, were the counterattacking team and the away team was the possession team? It's set up aesthetically as being the opposites, and yet the truth of the matter is, Doyle, it's exactly what you just said. Seattle is more comfortable being the counterattacking team. I don't think he can do it, and I hope he doesn't. Because the truth of the matter, and one part of this matchup that I understand from personal history, is that when you haven't scored a goal in your first 2 MLS Cup, guys, there's real pressure on you. I don't care who you are. So the Jordan Morris, Rodriguez's, Jovan Jones even to that extent, Roldan, Svensson, Lodeiro, Rui Diaz is the only one that is going into this one kind of fresh and with no real history, but I can guarantee you he's been reminded, we haven't scored a goal in 210 minutes. So I think Schmetzer has to come out on the front foot, guns blazing, and get after it. And the one thing that is not being talked about, and I understand it because it's kind of crossing different sports, but when the Seahawks play at home, guys, it's often talked about as the loudest stadium, probably behind Arrowhead in Kansas City, right? So that aspect, if you've got 70,000 plus in that stadium, why would you come into that one at all timid? You can't. And I think if Schmetzer comes out, first 20 minutes, you're at it, you're throwing numbers forward, and you're getting after it. Because if you score the first goal, the crowd's going to get behind you. It's a more difficult task for Toronto. If Toronto scores the first goal, quite honestly, it doesn't change the game. So why not get after it? In all seriousness, get after it from the opening whistle and actually try to win this game maybe 2-3-0 and see what happens. If he goes the other way, I think they're in trouble because I don't think that anxiety in the building is going to help everyone in the second half.
That seems like it would be something Toronto FC would like to exploit. 3 questions about them for you. Who's under pressure? Are they under pressure? What do you think about the Jozy health situation? And what would it be like to reportedly play for $6.5 million in option form if you're Michael Bradley, reporting there from Paul Tenorio and Sam Stachel with The Athletic?
Yeah, I think Michael, Michael wants to stay in Toronto. There's no secret. So obviously you win the game, you take care of that, and by the way, you're going to probably make an extra, $4 to $5 million doing so. But Michael's a professional. He's been around. He's played over 260 games for club and country since coming to Toronto. And I don't care what anyone says. You can separate the Michael Bradley from the national team and to the club. He's played in every single minute for Toronto FC in their playoff history. So no matter what amount of money they spent, Larry Tenenbaum and everyone at Toronto can definitely look at it and say, I like that. He delivered, and if they win this one, I don't think they're under pressure, Andrew. I don't. I just think the moment now in Major League Soccer, when you're playing on the road in MLS Cup, I just think that takes it away. I don't care what's on the line for Michael Bradley. Greg Vanney, Omar Gonzalez, Jozy Altidore, whatnot. I just think that takes the pressure away. But this is a team where their head coach in the middle of June, a lot of people are talking about he may be let go. This team really struggled through an 11-game stretch in May through August. Then Omar Gonzalez shows up, and obviously everything turns the corner. But I think if you got Greg Vanney on the side off the record, I quite honestly think if you say, Greg, what do you want to do? I think he would say, you know what, I would love to just run an academy, develop young players at a big club in Major League Soccer, and get after it. I'm not totally sure he loves this role. Now, he's going to say that publicly, and more than likely he's going to come back to Toronto, but he's just been different a lot this year in the way he's changed lineups, the way he's made changes. Now, quite honestly, it's worked well for him, right? You guys have done a very good job of analyzing his substitution patterns in the playoffs, but the regular season, a lot of those substitution patterns were too negative, and it cost them points. I just don't see them under pressure. It's a long-winded answer of saying I think more pressure's on Seattle because they're at home, and they've struggled in this matchup.
Let's talk about the substitution patterns because Greg Vanney has repeatedly found match winners off the bench in these playoffs, whether it's Nick De Leon or Richie Larea. Might even have Jozy Altidore off the bench in this one as well.
Not bad.
Not a bad little trio of guys
maybe
right there.
miracles.
But one of the things that he's done late in these games is kind of throw caution to the wind and say, all right, Richie, get forward. You're playing right back, but we want you in the attacking 18. Nick De Leon has come in. He's played every position under the sun. But at times this year, and I think a little bit in the playoffs, he's had to play as kind of a wing back as well. Uh-huh. And down the stretch, they just seem so comfortable knowing when to take those risks. Do you think that's going to be the game plan again for Toronto? Do you think that they're going to say, all right, let's just stay in this for 70 minutes, and then we'll get our chance to win it?
Doyle, it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, look, they've won all 3 playoff games after the 75th minute.
Yeah.
So that, in a nutshell, right there, defines what you're talking about. So whatever move Vanney has done, it's worked for this team. But would it really surprise you guys if he came out in this game and said, you know what, Omar Gonzalez is starting in between Simon and Mavinga, and we're going to play 3 center backs and change it? That wouldn't surprise me either. And everyone's that I've said that to over the last 24 to 48 hours, what are you talking about? The one thing Vanney's never been shy of is throwing a little tactical wrinkle into it. Now, some would say you need more consistency. Okay, fine. But others would say you're playing the game. You're playing that particular game. Guys, it wouldn't surprise me if Omar starts, but he starts next to Simon and Mavinga, and then you look at, is it Aro or then is it Richie Larea, who in my opinion has been better? I'm not totally sure you can start Endo. The way this has gone. Jozy 100% is going to be an option off the bench, if at all. And that's the difficult thing, because I think over the last 24 to 36 hours, it hasn't gone as smoothly as Vanney and Toronto would have liked with Jozy. But I think you're nuts if you don't look at him and say, wait a minute, can you give me 10, 15 minutes? Because if you need that and ultimately need someone to take a penalty, which we all know Toronto struggles with, I'd be shocked if Jozy isn't on the bench, but he's pushed all the right buttons. I just think he could throw you another curveball at the kickoff and look at it and say, whoa, he's gone back to that 3-5-2, so to speak, where it's worked. The number one thing he cannot do is play Pozuelo in the midfield. If he does, they're in for a long day because he won't defend, and their turnaround, as much as Omar Gonzalez is getting the credit, it's been in the midfield with Delgado, even De Leon at times, Osorio, and Michael Bradley. It's been much more effective than when they played Pozuelo in the middle.
It's another bummer for everybody who likes watching Jozy Altidore play soccer, for just neutrals to not see him in this postseason. Jozy just signed that contract extension. What's your feel on his place with the club right now and how maybe this has affected him and just the playoffs in general? It's just I'm extremely bummed I don't get to see this Toronto team with Jozy.
Yeah, take the emotion away from it, Wiebe. I still think you have to question whether or not signing Altidore to that kind of deal is the right move. Because, listen, it's all about timing. That's what sports is more often than not. Giovinco left. Jozy Altidore and his representatives took advantage of that, and they got that deal. But when you look at it, he's only played 22 games this year. He's missed all playoff games. You're risking a lot there. And ever since the World Cup qualifying, and quite honestly, it's been earlier. I'm actually downgrading it. When you look at the World Cup in 2014, since then, he's had issues. He's had big, major issues with muscles in that problem. So is it a bummer for Toronto? Absolutely. Is it a bummer for the neutral fan? Even more so, because they're complete when he's on the field. It's just a huge question because Jozy's been injured more often than not since 2014 World Cup. And to re-up that deal, that's going to be a big question, not only for MLS Cup 2019, but also for 2020.
Let's stay nitty-gritty with a couple more personnel choices on both sides. We're all assuming that Omar is going to start, even though he hasn't played yet in the playoffs. There's also a World Cup veteran center back on Seattle who's missed a lot of time in Roman Torres. We know that Brian Schmetzer isn't going to tinker around with a 3-5-2 or 5-4-1 or anything like that. It's going to be the 4-2-3-1. It comes down to Torres or Xavier Arriaga. Which one do you think he picks, Taylor?
That's a good one, Doyle. I don't know. But honestly, Arriaga looks like a free safety the way he played against Carlos Vela. You should have had easily a penalty called against him, and then the challenge outside the box, I swear.
Playoff hockey. Hockey.
That was the best open field tackle I've seen in a long, long time.
He didn't even have to wrap.
We're kind of joking, but in all seriousness, he ran him over.
Yeah.
And to think he went into that game when his last two starts he got red carded, and that was his first challenge. You're sitting there saying, wait a minute. But I don't know the health of Roman Torres. Is he healthy enough to come off the bench against LAFC? Yes. Has he had 10 days to get fit? Absolutely. But when you come off the best performance you've had in franchise history, in my opinion, Svensson having his best game he's ever played for Seattle, that triangle there, I'm not totally sure he plays with it. Now, Arriaga's better with the ball at his feet. He's got the ability to play between the lines. So if you're going to press the issue, I think you're going to get a lot out of what Schmetzer wants to do by that decision, Doyle. I really do. I think if Torres starts, he's looking at it saying, wait a minute, we got to defend. But with a false number 9, more than likely, in Pozuelo up front, I don't think you change the back line for Seattle because it actually plays into Kim Keehee and Arriaga as opposed to Roman Torres.
So you'll get more, of course, from Taylor on Sunday. MLS Cup 24, 3 p.m. Eastern on ABC in English in the U.S., Univision TUDN in Spanish, TVA and TSN. Taylor, you know what? I'm guessing they'll ask you for a prediction. You'll be paid to give a prediction. We'll just let you save yours from there and let you get out easy because I want to talk to you about other stuff. First of all, Darlington Nagbe. It's the trade that everybody basically expected to happen. What does it mean? What should it mean for Columbus and for Atlanta?
For Atlanta, it means they've now got the resources to address Julian Gressel's unhappiness with his contract. And if anyone needs to be re-signed now, and if they want to keep him, then it's Julian Gressel. I'm not saying Gressel plays centrally and takes over Nagbe's position, but the way they re-signed Miles Robinson after his breakout year, this gives them the resources to address Julian Gressel, but it also gives them resources to address other areas. For Columbus, it's still up in the air for me because I still think that Caleb Porter looks at the situation with everyone there in Columbus and says, this isn't my team. You could tell from the opening whistle he didn't like Artur. But I liked him for Greg Berhalter, so that's an interesting asset now with what they have. For Columbus, they're going to be decent in possession if Darlington Nagbe is going to play centrally with Will Trapp. But those two defending, that's going to be a big concern. I still think there's some real question marks in Columbus, and I think Caleb Porter is going to try to address that. But that was something that Darlington Nagbe wanted in 18. He picked the wrong time to do it in preseason leading into the regular season. He got the move that he wanted.
How about Dax McCarty in Nashville? But more importantly, how about the Chicago Fire? They're going to.
You guys know what the Chicago Fire are doing?
No, I don't. That's why I'm asking you.
So you trade for $400,000 of allocation money in Raheem Edwards, and now you trade Dax McCarty for what? $100,000 in a draft pick? But
seems low.
I don't. It just doesn't. It doesn't add up to me. It does now. For Nashville, you get you get an experienced guy in a locker room that is much needed. I still think Nashville's got some holes. Naturally, they do, and I hope they go differently than the way FC Cincinnati went after it. And they're going to still have to make some moves. I think Dave Romney's a smart pickup in that sense, but. The Chicago Fire, you're having a huge expectation level for 2020 Soldier Field, and when you go into the weeds, there's a lot of question marks with what moves they're making.
I remember sitting on this set, And I think we were talking about Lewandowski and Chicharito.
Yeah.
Is this what they've got to do something like that, right? I mean, you make the move to fire, to go downtown, something, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they have his allocation, right? Chicharito, that is, right? So make that of what you will. But that's what I've said on halftime of ESPN, and then I said it with you guys. You have to do something like that. Listen, you go get Chicharito and Lewandowski or one or the other. Now you're making a splash and you're saying, here we go. Now we're getting after it. But and I'm not saying you're going to judge that by Dax McCarty going, but if you look at them and new ownership coming in, you got to ask the question. You trade Raheem Edwards. You trade $400,000 of allocation for Raheem Edwards. We just traded Dax McCarty for $100,000, guys. That's where there needs to be a real eye-opening critical look at Chicago Fire and what they're going to do. Now, let's say they go out and get Quintero from Colombia, right?
Yeah.
A move they should have made, I'd argue, 24 months ago before he went to the 2018 World Cup. Does that change it? No, I'm not totally sure it does either.
We shall see from the Fire. They've got an opportunity here. How they grab it will be up to them. One more before we get you out of here. Big picture, Major League Soccer, 2019. We sat at this desk on the last show and kind of said, other than the very, very top that is LAFC, it sort of felt like the league was a little bit down. How did you see MLS this year in comparison to years past and just on your own expectations?
I think all of us are looking at it that it was a down year just because LAFC had that good of a year, right? So this league prides itself on its parity. LAFC trumped that a little bit by running away with the regular season and the supporter shield. So I think naturally, and rightfully so, everyone looks at it and says it was a down year. But listen, you had two guys score over 30 goals. I can't wait for the time when this league is spending the amount of money they are on attacking players on the defenders and the defensive side of things, because then you're going to really look at a transformation of the league. I love the playoffs. I know you guys do. Here at ESPN, we've had ratings we haven't seen in a long, long time. We've got a final on ABC. So while we may get into the nitty-gritty oftentimes, and that's what us three do for a living, as a whole, guys, we're Sunday ABC for an MLS Cup final coming off the best ratings ESPN had in arguably their 24 years. I would say there's some real progress that has been made. But on the field, tactically and personnel-wise, I just can't wait to see some real defenders in this league that then can look at the Josef Martinez of the world and Carlos Vela and say, guess what? You're not scoring 30 goals anymore.
Love the segment you did in the Big Sports Center studio, by the way. If people haven't seen that, go check it out. At Taylor Twellman on Twitter. He's got that pinned to the top right now. We're not getting that MLS Cup prediction, so how about this? Zlatan back with the Galaxy or no? No.
I don't think he is, and I actually think that's going to be in Scalotto's mind and the rest of the Galaxy. I think it's going to make 2020 a little bit more intriguing.
All right. Go watch. Sounders, Toronto FC, ABC, Taylor Twellman will be there. Of course, Univision, TUDN in Spanish, TVA, and TSN in Canada. Taylor, thanks for giving us the time, man. We'll be watching, okay?
Yep, 2019, boys. Hell of a year for you guys. Well done.
Well, as always, there are some things to digest when Taylor Twellman comes on this show. Big thanks to him. Let's go right back out to Seattle to Matt Pentz. He's a staff writer at The Athletic. You know his coverage up there in the Pacific Northwest. He's the author of The Sound and the Glory. He knows an awful lot about this franchise, this team, this coach, and these players. It's Matt Pentz. Welcome to Extra Time.
Too much. Busy time out here. Everybody's excited. I'm excited to get into all the MLS Cup festivities and everything else. So, yeah, a busy week out here.
So I hope that I hear that you've sent Sam Stejskal away. He will not be jealous about this interview. You are now among the hallowed three with him and Paul on Extra Time, Matt. Let's just enshrine you there. But let's talk about Seattle and the city and how people are feeling. 70,000 tickets gone like that, a snap of the fingers. Tell us what it's like on the ground.
Yeah, I've been on the beat since 2014, the year that the Sounders won the Supporter Shield. Obviously covered a couple championship games now, including the one that they won. And honestly, the vibe around the city in sort of the casual interest in the Sounders is already above and beyond anything that I've ever experienced. Just different people who I only even kind of know and who know that I'm kind of related to the Sounders been hitting me up asking for ticket info. Like you said, it all went super quick. You can just sort of feel that buzz And I think it's just a really cool event and a really sort of interesting opportunity for the Sounders to take another step and to become even more relevant in the city. And I think it's kind of a key moment for them to capitalize on that. So I think that's kind of a subplot to what's going to happen on Sunday, to see whether they can tap into that energy.
So this is the club, of course, that invented MLS in 2009. I'm just kidding. I am curious,
Are
though.
you? Wait a minute.
No. I'm kidding. But I am curious about what you said at the end there about their place in the city. And I think from the outside, MLS fans always look at Seattle and think, they were sort of the original definition of, big in their market, and they had, mainstream media and this filled up stadium, and they were setting the standard. Where are they right now in Seattle? Where can they be?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a clear number one in the Seahawks. The NFL always kind of being paramount, it seems like, in most American cities. I think the University of Washington football team is also above them in the hierarchy, which people from the outside might not realize. And the Sounders are kind of in that middle, around the Mariners and with some other teams. And it's a big sports market. It's got a lot of the major teams. I think that, and compared to a place like Portland or Salt Lake, where I just feel like the Timbers and RSL, just because of the sports market that it is and the other pro teams that are there, they feel a little bit more central. And so the Sounders, sort of the challenge for them, having really honed in on a passionate base of supporters that get that 40,000 out to the stadium every weekend, their challenge has been to expand and grow that and to continue to sort of chip away at those casual fans. And that's why I think that this weekend is a really big opportunity to kind of get outside of that bubble and continue to grow their place within Seattle itself.
It seems the underlying message here is like maybe there had been a little complacency in the fan base over the last couple of years. I guess since the high point of winning it in 2016, there hasn't been another high point quite like it. Do you think that there was maybe some retraction in the fan base or just complacency, or is it just sort of a natural thing that happens over the course of a decade for a really successful club in any sport?
Yeah, I don't think it's a retraction, but I do think it's been a little bit stagnant. If you look at the average attendance, it's kind of held steady right around 40,000 for a little while now. I feel like the modern story of the Sounders is interesting because they have had this sort of history where they start on an upward track, they start to plateau a little bit, and then something rejuvenates the fan base and allows it to take another leap. You look at from 2009 until 2013, they had kind of started to level off. They signed Clint Dempsey. That was a huge deal, especially among casual fans. Took off again, started to stagnate again around 2016, won MLS Cup for the first time, and that was another big deal. And then you sort of see that similar track right now, and I think that this will be another inflection point when you look at the growth of the club, especially in this market, and especially if they're able to win on Sunday.
Winning will probably be on the shoulders of Raul Ruidiaz and Nico Lodeiro. We know that, of course, so many other great players in this team, but those two are sort of the shining lights. A lot has been said about Ruidiaz, but I want to talk about Lodeiro because every time I think about him, I think, wow, 27, Boca Juniors, Uruguay International, decides to come to Seattle. What has he meant to this club, and how did they get him in the first place?
Yeah, to sort of shamelessly plug a story that I've got coming out on The Athletic either later today or first thing tomorrow. I kind of dug into a lot of that, just sort of his central importance to what he's been in Seattle. And going back to the beginning, because I feel like it's a little bit lost, sort of how monumental his signing was at a time when a lot of guys in his prime playing in a big team like Boca Juniors wouldn't have even considered coming to Seattle. I think he's just a guy who really saw an opportunity to sort of better the circumstances for his family. That was really appealing to him. A lot of things kind of came together, and I was doing some research for the story and realized that he arrived in MLS a year after Steven Gerrard at LA and Frank Lampard started playing for NYCFC, and it kind of shows how much the targeted designated players have changed only in the last couple of years, and he was really a forerunner of the younger, hungrier, sort of want to be the centerpiece of the team type guys. And he's really lived up to that and more, not just with his stats, but with his work rate, with the way that the guys seem to follow his lead. I don't think anybody has been as important to the Sounders' success over the last 3 or 4 years than Nico Lodeiro.
Such a great signing he was, and such a great signing I guess Brian Schmetzer has turned out to be as head coach. Taylor Twellman talked to us about the edge that he's always had that maybe we didn't always see. I'm more curious from you, and I know you've done the research here and you know Brian well, more to help explain to people what it is exactly he means to Seattle, the sporting city, because as you dig deep into his story, it's so much more than the last 4 years with the Sounders.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you just look at sort of his local ties and you think about sort of modern professional sports where it's a little bit more commercialized. You don't really have that like hometown hero element to it very often. A guy who played in his city, grew up here, and eventually became the head coach of the team. And you can almost sort of trace the history of Seattle soccer through Schmetzer. He played for the NASL Sounders in the early 1980s. He sort of survived through the dark ages after that league folded and played for some semi-pro teams, played indoor, coached up and played for a minor league team for a while here. He was actually working in construction when the new Sounders owner, Adrian Hanauer, called him up in 2002, asking if he wanted to join up with the USL team. And he's been around ever since, and he bided his time after they moved up to MLS, and he was the top assistant. Whenever they brought him in to replace Ziggy Schmid, at first it was an interim basis, and it didn't seem patronizing necessarily, but I don't know that anybody really seriously gave him a shot to not only win the job, but to thrive in the way that he has, because he is just sort of a very genuine, down-to-earth, unassuming, very nice guy. And I think that kind of can almost throw people off in a weird way to how effective he is as a motivator and how he's really grown into his role here.
He has been effective as a motivator. It seems like a locker room where the highs don't get too high and the lows don't get too low, which is, I think, what you want over the course of not just a season, but many seasons. That said, this is a different type of challenge for Brian Schmetzer. In the previous two MLS Cups, Seattle were the underdogs. I know they had that great run in 2016, but they were going to a Toronto team that was stacked and playing great soccer. And then 2017, that's obviously the best team in MLS history. And Seattle didn't get on the board in either of those games, haven't scored a goal in MLS Cup. This time they're expected to score a goal. They're expected to score a lot of goals. They are prohibitive favorites. How do you think this team and this coach will respond to that? Will the reins come off a little bit? Will we see some open attacking play from the Sounders?
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's an interesting narrative, because I do think that those first two teams that Schmetzer coached at the MLS Cup, they really sort of embrace that gritty, slow the game down, make them beat us style of play. I do think that they've been evolving slowly away from that, really, for a couple of years now. They only have 6 guys still on the roster from that 2016 team. The guys that they've brought in, a lot of targeted allocation money signings, just sort of these quality role players that can play good soccer. They haven't always shown that sort of fluid attacking style that they really wanted to live up to this year, but you've seen it in sort of spurts here, especially at home. I do think that they're a lot more comfortable taking the initiative in games than they had been the last couple of years. And I think that with the home crowd, they're a confident group who's done it before. I think they'll find a way to impose themselves, even though it will have to probably take a different style than they've deployed before.
All right, Matt, last one, and make it quick here for us. Will there be a parade next week? What do you think?
I think so. I think the Sounders score early, and it sort of blows everything up, and it kind of turns into an open track meet, which is what they're looking for. I think the crowd really lifts them, and that it kind of turns into a party pretty early on at CenturyLink Field.
All right. Strong words there from Matt Pentz. You can follow his work at The Athletic, at Matt Pentz with a Z on Twitter. Matt, thanks for calling in, man.
I appreciate it, guys. Anytime.
All right, Matt, you keep asking. I want to know what you think. Is Brian Schmetzer going to push the envelope in this game, or will he be more cautious?
I'm still not even sure yet. I need like another 20 minutes to stew on this and get to my answer because there are good arguments in both directions.
Oh, you don't want to give it away. Your prediction. You're holding it back. I see how this works. All right, let's get to Danny Dichio. He is a Toronto FC legend. He's seen them at, let's just say, many different states in their history. Welcome to the show, Danny.
Thank you for having me on, guys. Pleasure to be on.
So the thing I remember most about Toronto in those early days, Danny, and this was when I was first really into this league, was all those cushion seats flying into the air on that first goal. We're going to talk to you about the growth of this club, but I want to know about the early days, about the excitement and then the on-field results and how you perceived all of it.
Well, it was a totally new experience for me, guys, coming over from England, playing for an expansion club, a new club in Toronto FC with a new ground, a new kind of base of supporters who are really hungry for soccer in the city. You know, we have a very diverse city here, whether it be Europeans, Caribbean, South Americans, Central Americans, Africans, wherever it is, and they were like dying for some soccer, some professional soccer to be played in the city. So when it eventually came, and I came about 3 games into the season, and there was just this real vibrant kind of interest in the first game of the season. And we played actually our first game of the season against Kansas, which we lost to an Eddie Johnson 1-0 goal. And the second game was kind of the highlight against Chicago Fire. That was, I don't know why, really. It was kind of their opening game. It was a much warmer day in Toronto, a sunny day, and the fans came out in their droves. And as you alluded to, there was too many seat cushions on that day, and I think they got actually fined by the MLS in the end. But what a spectacle. And I must have got hit by at least 60 seat cushions that day. The game was delayed for about 10 minutes while the grounds crew kind of cleared the field that day. But it was a fantastic experience for me coming over from Europe. I'd never, ever been part of a game like that.
Tell me what it was like when Michael Bradley came to this club. How did he change it? Not just individually, certainly collectively it changed, but what was his influence?
Michael had a massive impact on the club, not only because of his quality of play, but because of his leadership skills. And you ask anyone, Mike is a perfectionist. When off the field, there's certain parts of the training ground that he demands the players act in a certain way, whether it be to members of staff, the way they act, the way they prepare. And that translates on the field as well, the way he dictates things, the way he puts demands on fellow players, the way he puts demands on himself as well. He's an ultimate professional. I think that rubbed off a lot on our younger players, but also to his teammates within the group as well.
Tell me about this game now. You have one opportunity to create this dynasty, and those are finals, and this is another one. I believe it's the 10th since 2014. What does this game mean to the club, especially given the fact that maybe halfway through the year it didn't look like this group was capable of this sort of run?
Well, you know what? There's a lot of outsiders that didn't believe this group were good enough to get to the Cup finals, but you ask a lot of people within. We knew that once we got certain players back from injury, we knew that once the Gold Cup was over as well, we knew we could be one of the best teams in the East, if not the best. Okay, there were certain games where we didn't pick up points, but we picked up a really good run towards the end of the season. The momentum was with us, and we were missing a couple of big players going into the playoffs as well, in Omar Gonzalez, who had a slight injury, and Jozy obviously picked up a big injury against Columbus. So for the club to have that grit and character, and the team within showing that we have players capable of winning games, whether it be at New York City FC, whether it be at Atlanta, where a lot of teams have come under the gun and not got a result. They showed that character, that belief that they could do it. And again, I go back to, there's a lot of us in the club that believed that we could do it. Maybe not too many outsiders, but like Seattle as well, I think they have a great belief in their group that when they actually get into the playoffs and maybe going on a little bit of a run towards the end of the league season, it will take them into the playoffs in good stead. And it showed both teams have been there before. They have the experience. They have experienced players within their group. They have some young, hungry players that are looking to deliver in their first Cup final. And it just sets up to be a very exceptional final with a full house that we're all looking forward to.
All right, Danny, give me that prediction, man. We were some of those that said, without Jozy, don't think it can happen. How does this happen for Toronto FC?
We just stick to our game plan. We know that Greg's obviously got a plan A, plan B, plan C that they're going to have to adjust within the game. Seattle are a very good team at home, but we've proved that we've gone into some big clubs, some big teams, and got the result. There's a real belief within this group that they can pick up a result anyway. And let's not forget, 2 years ago we were in the CONCACAF Champions League final and we just missed out on that last minute miss through Marky Delgado and then going to penalty kicks. So we still have a lot of that group together still, and they're willing to push each other on and go against the odds. Maybe we're the underdog, but we in the club, we don't believe we're the underdogs.
All right, Danny. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. We'll see what happens on Sunday. Let people know where they can hear you. You have a podcast going yourself now.
Yeah, we have a podcast which you can find on Apple Podcasts. It's called Footy Prime, the podcast, and that's me with a couple of other guys who used to work on Sportsnet TV with. And we speak about all things MLS, all things world football, even the CPL in Canada at the moment. So it's a fun podcast to listen to. So if you can get your listeners to listen to that as well, be most appreciated.
All right. Thank you so much, Danny. Have a great day, man.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right, big thanks to Danny Dichio. I know better than to ask you any questions at this point, Doyle. You're saving it all, apparently, for the predictions. If you need a reminder, 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, MLS Cup 24, Sounders, Toronto FC. The game is sold out. You cannot get a ticket unless you pay an awful lot of money on the secondary market. You can watch it on ABC, TUDN, TSN, TVA, and Univision. Let's now get to some predictions before we make our own. It is first to Jeremiah Oshan. We go. You know him from SB Nation and Sounder at heart. Jeremiah, how's it going?
Not much. Just enjoying an absolutely gorgeous day in Seattle.
Sounds a lot different than what the last 2 MLS Cups that have involved this team have been like. In frigid Toronto, I'm happy for a change of scenery, happy for the city of Seattle and the Sounders fan base to get this MLS Cup with their team. Now let's get some predictions from you. I want an X factor, something that people aren't thinking about, that could change this game.
So the obvious one, I think, and I'm sure you've even talked about it, is Victor Rodriguez. And I think if he plays, it's probably going to be off the bench. He's got an ability to change the game. But if you're looking for someone who isn't quite as obvious and who hasn't necessarily been a huge star in these early stages or the first few stages of the MLS Cup playoffs, I would say Jovan Jones is probably a pretty good shout. He's quietly been really effective. When he first came over here, he was slow to integrate, I think, into the team. He was a little slow to get back to where he was during his first stint with the Sounders. But he's been a real solid contributor, and I would not be at all surprised to see him come up with a big play at some point in this match that maybe turns it on its head.
Now, I'm not going to lie, Jeremiah. The entire time that you were building up to Jovan Jones, inside my brain, I was just saying Nouhou.
I would love to say Nouhou. Well, there is going to be a Nouhou moment. There's no question about it. But will it be a X factor in terms of changing the game? I don't know. But I guarantee we will get a moment where he does something spectacular and the crowd absolutely loses its mind, and the coaches will probably also be losing their minds for the exact opposite reason. But he is I can only tell you the anticipation of him scoring a goal against LAFC at the end there it was almost hard to get over the disappointment of him not scoring that goal as it was to celebrate them winning the game, because we wanted it so bad for him. It would have been such a perfect ending to that game.
Exactly.
You take the 3-1 win, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess. Give me a Nouhou MLS Cup goal or give me nothing at all. Let's get your prediction, man. Who's winning this game and how?
I really do think this is a game the Sounders can't lose. I think that the city of Seattle, it's been so much of a built-up, this narrative that is following along, it would be a pretty massive disappointment for them not to close the deal. And they've been talking about this. Garth Lagaway was early in the week was basically saying hey, it's a great story that we're here and everything, but if we don't win this, it changes it changes the historical place that we take. And I think that they understand that. I think that they have this sense of living in the moment as well. I think this is their match to win, and I think Sounders fans should feel confident going into this. If not, there's no reason to be overconfident. Toronto FC is a very good team, but it feels like a match they're going to win.
What happens if they don't win?
I mean, I think it's a huge letdown. There's no question about it. I mean, I think there's a lot of positivity in the market right now. I think people are pretty amped up. I think from a historical perspective, you can't help but, I mean, you would, there's a big gap between winning once in 4 years and winning twice in 4 years. And so I think it's the difference between being able to call this team almost a dynasty and just another good team in MLS history. So I think the historical perspective will be very different if they don't win this, and that's just like with LAFC not closing the deal. It's maybe harsh to not say that they had the best regular season, but at the same time, it's the same kind of deal. They have to finish the deal to really cement their place in history among some of these great MLS teams. But I think there is a lot of positivity that's going to come out of this regardless of the result. Obviously it would be a lot better if it ends with a parade, but if it doesn't, I still think that there was this reminder in market that this is still a really big deal here. I think in the last couple of years, there's been the sense that the Sounders not the hot ticket that they used to be. Attendance has started to level off pretty significantly. They just barely crossed over 40,000 average attendance this year. They haven't had a big draw game basically since 2015, I want to say, where they topped 60,000. And this was a reminder that there's still a lot of people here that want to root for the Sounders. And so I would imagine there's going to be some positivity to come from this regardless.
You said almost a dynasty. Is that the headline on Sounder at Heart? If
they don't win.
No, but what if they do win? If they do win, are they actually a dynasty or are they almost a dynasty?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think there is going to be a temptation on our part to call it a dynasty because you always want to call it. You want that label immediately, right? But I think it's hard to really put that stamp on it until you have some space to say, okay, historically, this is what they ended up accomplishing. I mean, right now, this would be if they win, it would be their 7th major trophy in 11 seasons. They've made the playoffs all 11 years. They would have made the finals 3 times. So, there's a lot. I think there's a lot of elements to it. But I guess they always say you got to win 3 titles to be a real dynasty. And so I think you're probably right. You're one step away, but don't think Sounder at Heart isn't going to get ahead of ourselves by calling it.
I was going to say, one step from a dynasty. You heard it from Jeremiah Oshan. Here we go. Sounder at Heart, if you're not reading their stuff ahead of this game, you're making a huge, huge mistake. Follow him on Twitter, Jeremiah Oshan. Jeremiah, thanks for your time, man.
Thank you.
Wow, Jeremiah using the D word. Dynasty, Doyle. Well, now it's time to talk to a guy who has seen a little bit of a dynasty in Toronto. ARON PAPERNIK, he is the host and producer of Canada FC. You can listen to that on Sirius XM 167 up in Canada. ARON, what's up, man?
I am excited. I'm hyped. How are you guys doing? I'm caffeinated as usual. I'm ready to rock.
Yeah, man. The dulcet tones are coming right through. I appreciate that. And I want to say that I understand why David Goss has taken my place as the number 1 choice from Extra Time on Canada FC. I don't take it personally. I completely get it. I want you to know that.
I'm glad to hear you're not taking it personally.
Not at all. I will not bring it up ever again. Maybe
if you're nicer to Canada and express your love for wanting to become a Canadian more often, maybe that could sway us.
I could do that. I could honestly do that. I'll work on that for you. Let's get to the game. What's your X factor, ARON? What is the thing that could kind of come out of nowhere that could change this thing?
It's kind of a cliche to say I have more than one, but I feel like there's more than one coming into play here. The first X factor is Greg Vanney, his tactics, his willingness to change up tactics before a game and even within a game based on the flow of the game he sees. We all remember 2017 MLS Cup final between Toronto and Seattle again, where Greg Vanney ditched the 3-5-2 he had used all season long in 2017 and went with more of a 4-4-2 and kind of confused the Seattle Sounders. But he's also said earlier this week as well, he said he will change mid-game based on how the opponents are trying to control the game. Some teams like to hold the ball, some teams don't. They will go into it one way, and if they see they can better frustrate the opponent, they'll change it to another way. But another X factor, I think, comes from those wise sages, if I can stick in another one here.
Go for it.
Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock. It's the joy and the pain, the sunshine and the rain. And people talk about the trophies Greg Vanney has won, the trophies that this team has won. Some people like to mention all the cups they have lost. Lost 2016 MLS Cup, lost 2018 CONCACAF Champions League. Even a couple of months ago, lost the 2019 Canadian Championship. But I feel that one builds into the other. I think in this team right now, their minds are in the right place, and you kind of can't enjoy the joy without the pain. You can't enjoy the sunshine without the rain. They've been to they've been to the Azteca. They got a result. They've been to Mexico. They lost in Guadalajara. They've learned and how to build from both sides of that coin, and I think they bring it all to this match. And I think playing in Atlanta and beating Atlanta, the favorites in the East, in a big NFL stadium, is only going to make them better prepared for Sunday's Cup final.
Oh, little poetry on extra time. I'm loving it, Aaron. All right, give us the prediction from your end. Will it be sunshine or will it be rain?
I think it will be sunshine. I highly doubt a clean sheet based on how TFC have performed in the playoffs thus far, but I think it'll be a 3-1 final with a late dagger, and one of those goals being a long-range shot from Nick DeLeon.
Playoff Nick DeLeon.
Yeah, Mr. October-November.
Let me ask you this, Aaron. What happens if the game goes to extra time, and then it goes 30 minutes, and then it goes to penalties? What is the mood like in the 6 as penalties begin?
Everyone in Toronto will find the nearest cliff and watch the playoffs from there in case they need to jump, in case it goes south. The cliff's known as the Scarborough Bluffs, a beautiful location in eastern Toronto. I highly doubt the way the TFC have gone in penalties in MLS Cup final, in CCL final, in Canadian Championship final. I feel like they're going to put it all out there. Will we see a 5-1 win in extra time like we saw against DC United? Probably not. Seattle's a different team to compete against in DC United, but the mood will be tense, and I think a lot of people have 9-1 dialed on their phone, ready to hit that one in case Toronto FC loses in penalty kicks. But I feel like the team, no one wants to mention the negatives, the clouds hanging over them, but I think that it is there, and that if it does go to extra time, they will do anything possible to not go to penalty kicks.
If it goes to extra time, that's when Richie Larea shows up, wearing a cape.
Beautiful. Just slows down enough to get that penalty kick. Is real quick before I let you go, Aaron, is $6.5 million, as it has been reported, a good price to pay for a championship? Is that in the 6? Is that just sort of universal? Like, let's win this thing. Let's have Michael back. Doesn't matter what the number is?
I would say yes. I'm in that camp of bring Michael back at any cost, both literally and figuratively. People have to remember he may have lost a step this year. He may get his pocket picked occasionally on the pitch, whereas in the past 2 years, no one dared come near him to attempt to pick his pocket. But he was tasked with changing the team culture when he arrived. He arrived at the tail end of the bad period in 2014 when they still didn't make the playoffs, along with Greg Vanney mid-2014, and even Justin Morrow at the same time also. He has rebuilt this team almost as much as the coach and the GM has. He was tasked with changing the getting choked up, mentality in the locker room, changing it from a losing mentality to a winning mentality. And even though they have won a few cups and lost a few finals, they still have a driven winning mentality. And they still have some young players in the locker room as well that I think could benefit from his wisdom. I think he comes back, and I would like to see him back in any way, shape, or form.
It sounds like the Leafs should sign him.
I would accept that. I'd be happy with that.
Oh, man. Great to talk to you, Aaron. Aaron Papernick on Twitter. You can listen to him in Canada on Canada FC. How can people follow your coverage headed into this big game, Aaron?
We are airing the MLS Cup final on SiriusXM 173, available across Canada in your car or on your app. And Canada FC gets you ready Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern on SiriusXM 167.
Perfect. Say hi to Dave for me next time, all right?
I will, my friend.
All right. Have you had time to think? Have you mulled over what your prediction may be here? You asked for 20 minutes. I gave you roughly 20 minutes, Doyle. Sounders, Toronto. Sounders have not lost a home playoff game in 11 matches. Sounders lost in 2017 to Toronto FC. They won in 2016, of course, famously without having, I believe, a shot on goal or a goal, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So, third time's the what? Is it the charm? Is it dreadful, dreadful pain at home, as Jeremiah helpfully outlined for us?
I mean, I'm always team Schadenfreude. But I can't see that happening in this one. The Sounders, according to research from my good friend Ben Bear, are 25-6-4 when Rui Diaz and Lodeiro start together over the past 2 years. Now, Rui Diaz did limp off the field in training on Wednesday, I believe, but it doesn't look like it's something major. It's probably not going to keep him out of the lineup. Jordan Morris is healthy and he's a match winner. Stephen Fry is healthy and he's a match winner. There are concerns about their central defense, but I just Toronto got past Atlanta playing like There's no way they should have won that game. And if you look at the second half of NYCFC, like they didn't generate chances by having the ball. They generated chances and they got those goals by NYCFC just screwing up. Like nothing but respect to Toronto, but I think Seattle's going to come out with the ball with 70,000 lunatics screaming them on, with the better team and the better players. And I don't want to say this is going to be completely one-sided, but there's going to be zero question about who the better team is, and it's going to be the Seattle Sounders.
Yeah, I think that as well. I think Seattle have, with Lodeiro and Ruiz-Diaz, and with the other pieces they have, a way to lock down the game and still be dangerous, which I'm not necessarily sure that Toronto have.
I mean, can Toronto be dangerous without Jozy?
Yeah, no, it's fair.
Because they don't.
It's fair.
Like normally,
you're looking for a moment of
what you got against Atlanta,
defending against Atlanta. You're looking for a moment of inept defending with a header back against New York City.
Yep.
You're looking for a moment of inept defending with Matarrita just hacking down.
I just don't see Seattle. I don't see Seattle giving them that. And then the flip side is like, okay, if you're gonna come into a game like that, just pack it in. Make it 0-0 and hit on the break, except Toronto doesn't have any speed. Like Nicolas Benezet is not running away from anyone, and neither is Tsubasa Endo. You know, they have Gallardo, who arrived mid-season, but he's barely played, and when he hasn't looked particularly goal dangerous. Pozuelo is a false nine. Even if you move Pozuelo out to one of the wings, which is what Taylor Twellman was kind of talking about, right? Like, you can't play Pozuelo in central midfield. It has to be Bradley, Delgado, and Osorio. When Pozuelo has played with an actual forward, he's been kind of shunted to the wing as a playmaker. Your number 9 is Patrick Mullins, and big Patrick Mullen fans.
I was gonna say,
but like
memory serves me right.
It's like he never lived up to what he did in the second half of 2016, and he's not running away from anybody either. So I just I go through all the permutations in my head. And unless the Sounders completely break down, I don't see how they lose this game.
Yeah, and that's the scary part. Beginning of the playoffs, it was logic reigns. Yeah, Galaxy at Minnesota. That seems like the one road match that could flip, and the other ones, hey, let's go chalk. And then logic seems to kind of go away from us in the conference finals, and now we're here with a matchup that we are oh so accustomed to. Sounders, Toronto, you're taking the Sounders, I'm taking the Sounders. Yeah. If history is any indication, when picking against Toronto FC at this very desk, when there are unanimous panels that say that the Toronto FC are going to lose, they win. What is the scenario for them to win? How could they win? Is it simply Sounders? I'm trying to come up with a logical
set
one,
pieces.
But I think
it's set pieces. Omar starts, and I think Toronto packs it in and says, all right, Seattle, come upfield. And Seattle just doesn't maybe have enough to create against a packed-in back line like that. So it's 0-0 late, and Seattle, starting to feel the pressure more because they're at home. Toronto get a set piece, and it's Omar or it's Bradley making that quick near post run, which he's still so good at. And they just find a way. I do keep thinking back to that game against FC Dallas, which I think was maybe the best game of the playoffs, better than El Tráfico. That game was wild. And FC Dallas were able to push forward constantly and create chance after chance after chance. But if you look at that team, they had so much speed and danger on the flanks.
From the outside backs forward.
Yeah, and Toronto doesn't have that.
And also Seattle learned their lesson in that moment.
Yeah.
Which was, if we open up in this way,
we get hurt.
Yeah. And Toronto FC may not have the quote-unquote tools to do it the same way, but I don't expect Brian Schmetzer, after what I think is rightfully being called by Zach Wani and others on this show a masterclass tactically.
It was.
Him and his staff against LAFC. He will understand the moment. He will have 2 of them in his pocket before, and he will say, no, look, Lodeiro and Ruiz-Diaz and Morris. Yeah. We need those 3. Those 3 alone can be dangerous. Those 3 can create chances. We don't have to rush it. It would be nice, like Twellman says, to come out and punch him in the face in the first 25, open it up, and then maybe go and just suffocate him from then on out. But we don't have to do it. Number 1, leave no gaps. Watch out for Pozuelo. Close down shooters from 25. And we'll be there, and we'll win this game. But that's the logical take, and a lot of times logic hasn't exactly worked out.
Not our strong suit.
No, it
here
doesn't
on
seem to be. 3 p.m.
Something
Eastern.
about being in the studio, the lights.
Sunday, MLS Cup 24,
Rain
ABC,
cloud.
Univision, TUDN, TVA, TSN. No excuses. You know where it's at. Go
Wait.
watch it. Tell your friends to watch it. Get your family to watch it. Go to the bar. Tell them to turn it on.
Everything we just said, if Jozy Altidore is actually healthy and good to go, which they're
There's
saying
no
he's
way.
not, but
There's
if he
no
can
way.
go 60, 65 minutes, everything we just said kind of changes.
What do you put the odds at that? Put yourself into Bobby Warshaw's shoes and give me a. It's like 5%.
Yeah, even when
If
Jozy's
that.
healthy, he can barely go 60 minutes.
Ooh.
No, it's true. It's true.
Anything you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I don't think so.
The one thing I will add: Matchday Central.
Okay.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern on both Friday and Saturday. Iko Para is in the studio with us. It'll be Doyle, Charlie, Kalen Carr, and myself. 2 30-minute preview shows to get you ready for the big day, and then the pre-game show. MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app. You can find all the coverage details there. Follow on Twitter at MLS, Facebook, wherever it is you consume our content, YouTube.
Yes. There is one thing I should add. We have barely said the name Jonathan Osorio on this show today. Jonathan Osorio. I don't know if there has been a better central midfielder in the league in these playoffs. He's been spectacular. And if you want to look for a way for Toronto to sneak one in there, think about that goal he scored against DC United. He just has a knack for these moments. So there you go. That was my ad.
That was a good cover.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. By the way, I'm told that pre- and post-game show on Sunday, ahead and after MLS Cup, is Twitter only. At MLS is where you can find us. We're at Extra Time Radio, 401-2060-MLS. Hit us up with all your thoughts. Feel free to do so in the game via the text line or email us. We'll be doing the post-game react immediately after Matchday Central. We'll just come right back here and do Extra Time, so you will get that show a little bit earlier than you are accustomed to. Enjoy the game, everybody.
Thank you.